And now in Esoteric Cliffnotes, we have Right Use of Will, received by Ceanne DeRohan. So just a note from the reader here, in case they don't mention it, and in case it's not mentioned in the highlights. This book apparently is written by God, and it's channeled by, I believe it's a woman. So every word in here, apparently it's spoken directly from God. So, right use of will, healing and evolving the emotional body. Introduction. If this book is for you, you will follow it from these few introductory pages. Realize it is meant to trigger you and not meant to be just a mental exercise. If this book is for you, it will bring forth emotional release. You need to allow this response without harming yourself or others. The will of God is not in opposition to the will of the individual. When the individual will feels the loving acceptance of its own spirit, it cannot fail to come into alignment with the divine will. God has given each individual part of his consciousness with which to be aware of himself, and part of his will with which to experience himself. Everyone now wishing to remain on earth must accept the whole being, and discontinue the denial of the part of the self that experiences the earth. The spirit inspires, the will responds to inspiration, and together they experience in the body. Body is the manifestation of both spirit and will. The spirit, in fact, has only polarized itself in order to experience the will. In order to experience. The will is the magnetic polarity of the spirit. Express everything you feel, and do not stop expressing emotionally and otherwise until you have really finished. Unconditional love exists when all of you is loving all of that which you love. Now, many people have thought that they were evolving into unconditional love on earth, but they have forgotten that they must accept all of themselves first. There is no way around it. If you do not totally accept yourself first, you cannot totally open to anything else. Darkness is the part of creation which receives the light. Where you will not open to receive the light, you have denial. Denial does not allow the light in. This has to be resolved on earth. The earth herself is going to evolve by clearing off herself and out of herself everything that has not been loving toward her. Just as she is doing it, all those that want to remain on earth must clear out of themselves everything that has not been loving. Denial of the unloving energy will not clear it. You cannot just mentally insist that you are unconditionally loving. You must really be there. That means all levels of your being must be there. In reading this book and in trying out the understandings given here, you need to accept responsibility for yourselves and not try to find someone to teach this to you, unless you have done as much as the book has to offer you, and you still have strong direction from your own spirit and will that you must seek out the people that have channeled this book. Unpleasantness is not sent from God as a punishment for misdeeds. When someone comes from outside and you do not know it is coming, it's because you are disconnected from it. By shifting the power from a state of externalized disconnection to internalized conscious acceptance, you can always know what is going to happen. You can say whatever you want to say as long as you say it out loud and say that you now forgive yourself. The creation is based on vibration. Sound is vibration. To release something and vibrate it away from you, if you do not want it, or get it moving so that it will evolve into something you do not want to have with you, you need to use sound and even body movement that will vibrate your physical being. I have been impelled to channel the right use of will to Earth at this time because the beings there have not been expressing freely enough to adequately vibrate their space and hold it open for themselves. My created beings on Earth have been experiencing their reality as seeming to close in on them, and their power as seeming to be insufficient to meet the situation facing Earth now. You need to realize it's not true. Denial of the will has made it that way. You must now start reversing the situation. It is not going to be easy at first, but it will become easier the longer you work it. Right use of will. The will expresses as feelings. The spirit and the will are partners in the body and must find their balance in the heart. If there is balance between the spirit and the will, only health, agelessness, and vitality are manifested, and the physical plane is no longer experienced as cut off from another plane of existence. This undermining of the will is equal to lost unconditional love. Then, for anyone that is not accepting part of himself unconditionally, it is not truly loving unconditionally. Clearing illness and habits. Illness is not sabotage. It is the body's statement that it has been having to hold the imbalance of denied will and needs release. With your full consciousness present, you can ask your body what the message is and receive an answer about how to restore balance. The practice of right use of will may at first bring forward illness because suppressed will is bound to have had suppressed symptoms. Aging indicates long-standing and ongoing imbalance. Illness, aging, and death do not need to be. The feelings underneath habitual responses are often feelings that have been denied by the person who is using habits instead of true response. Then there is also present a habit of avoiding feelings. If the feelings are allowed total acceptance and expression, they can begin telling the person what he needs in place of the suppressing habit forms. Habits are to the body what judgments are to the consciousness. Both have a rigidity. Lists of things to avoid have included alcohol, sugar, red meat, drugs, caffeine, marijuana, tobacco, sex, and extremes of any kind. The understanding is needed that the problem is not the substances themselves, but the habit patterns and the extremes often associated with these substances. All habits drop away when the consciousness is released from the need from them. And not understanding what was causal here, many have tried to break out of habits, giving up meat, for example, by using discipline and control. This approach only causes the pattern of habit to change its form. The reason for the habit pattern needs to be found and then accepted and understood, not condemned and disciplined away. When harmony and joy accompany the way of evolving, you always do exactly what you should be doing, and for no other reason except that is what you feel like doing. Free will in the presence of opposition. If you recover your own lost will, you will find it much easier to change your reality to suit you than to try to change an outward reflection of denial that you have not changed within yourself. Limits on the self. The attuned will be able to take you anywhere you want to go and has the ability to feed you and keep you warm. Holding the condition or judgment that these things must be worked for is part of the reason that will isn't able to provide these things in another way. Release of old conditioning lets present feelings tell you whether something is actually for you or not. Accept all of the reality you were meant to have on earth. Instead of making any judgments, give freedom a chance to work by allowing yourself to do whatever the situation calls for. Don't question your feelings here. Allow them to show you what to do. Remember that if your intent is to seek the balance of spirit and will, you are not going to harm yourself or anyone else. In freeing your own will, you cannot help but have outer reality respond. Ego. Death of the ego is not a necessary part of spiritual growth. Ego is as divine as anything else. Discipline, death, and reincarnation resulting from the original split from spirit and will. Death and rebirth are only a temporary way to work with the imbalance. The maximum possible amount of time has been given for spirits on earth to work on this imbalance through the pattern of reincarnation. This has been seen by many to be such a large amount of time that an assumption has been made here that reincarnation is the way that it is meant to be. In fact, it is now time to end this pattern by rebalancing the spirit and the will. This pattern had its place, but it has also confused many into thinking they have an unlimited number of lives in which to rebalance themselves. This is not the reality of the situation, though, and fear around this has caused nearly as many to go to the opposite extreme and claim there is only one chance. Neither extreme has the answer, but in fact it's no longer possible to put off the balancing of the spirit and will on earth. Memory loss is an illusion. Denial keeps it this way. If you want to remember, you can, because your body is holding everything your will has been able to give to your spirit, and your spirit knows all of it too. Inner listening. When polarities are seen as conflicting opposites, and especially when one is favored, the harmony that brings inner silence in which to hear is obscured by the conflict. It is necessary to ask me to fill you with light often, me as in God. Release judgment. Lost energy, lost love, lost power, lost anything is the result of denial, of holding it away from you by not accepting it. What was lost returns when you forgive yourself for denying it and accept it. All karma then is essentially with yourself, since what you hold in your own energy field draws your experiences to you. You can avoid making judgments by talking specifically and by not projecting your present opinions as eternal laws. If you do, you are the one controlling them. The ability to live a long life comes when the body is not forced to do what it doesn't want to do. Any will that is not totally undermined at least understands survival needs and will take care of them one way or another. Realities precipitating toward Earth. Get in touch with why you are there and process everything you can find in yourself regarding this in the way I'm explaining here and see what happens. I'm going to help you with this because I can see that the reality on Earth is pressuring for widespread conformity. You must take responsibility for yourself, though, and clear out of yourself everything that holds you to a reality or part of a reality that you do not like. Then I can put you in your right place, which will not have anything you do not like, which will not have anything you do not like, because you will not have anything within you that attracts it. Do not worry about giving into your own true feelings, because feelings are not in opposition to me. Release of the fear that you have created your own just punishment by overstepping my limits is necessary, because holding a strong fear that you deserve punishment is going to draw punishment to you. The earth can no longer tolerate the abuse it has been receiving, and for that matter, neither can the animals. Their behavior patterns so far have not seemed to show much variance, no matter how they have been treated, but it is not accurate seeing of the animals. Reality is that animals have much more to their behavior than they have been showing man lately on Earth. Man cannot slaughter them, overrun their habitats, and otherwise disrespect their destiny paths without the animals responding in some way. In this denial of the animals, man has mistaken their patience for lack of response. When the earth changes intensify, animals that need clearance may become suddenly fierce and unapproachable. Others may choose to die. Cattle, for example, have asked me to lift most of them off the earth. Accept the will's messages to you without waiting for an outward experience to prove it right. If the will is accepted, you will not create any experiences for yourself that you do not like. Your will is the divine protection I have given you. Emotional release. Say something that indicates you no longer wish to limit your consciousness with that particular belief that you are releasing. For example, I forgive myself for believing, or I no longer believe that I cannot recover my full spiritual presence on earth. Many people have a confusion on manifestation and what it means. You are my companions. The self is not something to be shed as soon as you have enough spiritual enlightenment to reach me. I want this creation to evolve, not to go back to itself. In fact, I want the pain and suffering ended as soon as possible. Pain and suffering is nothing more than denying the will, the magnetic energy, its role of guiding you to your own right place. Once you have released enough old charge to actually listen and hear me, I will be able to guide you to clear the rest. You must trust what you receive from me, though. Have faith that clearing your emotional body is also going to allow you to feel that I am a loving presence. If you have fear of being misled by something claiming to be me, release fear until there is none left. Then you will be able to feel me instead of your own fear. When you clearly feel me, you will know it is me. Right use of will as a healing power for yourself and the earth. Disease organisms are actually a part of the body that is always ready to clear it of any invasion that is life-threatening. Any other way of seeing them is only denying a part of yourself. The need for this sort of clearance always warns you first with a feeling of getting sick. If you release everything that is present in this sick feeling, you do not need to get sick. The use of drugs to heal yourself, including all of the currently popular consciousness-altering drugs, is not being suggested by me because there is risk involved that you will then have to reclaim your personal power from the drugs. This might even mean going over all the steps again without the drugs. The way to protect yourself and the earth does not require doing anything you do not want to do either. You need only express the feelings you have about what is happening on earth to me and to the people with whom you have a feeling of trust. If this is what you feel you can do, this is fine and will be effective. To be able to ask me for something and to be in alignment, you need to know what all of you wants. I cannot heal part of you if it means lifting you away from your denial. Then you are not healed. I cannot lift you away from a part of yourself because you must take responsibility for all of yourself. The fact of the matter is that what you want and what you need are the same thing when you have alignment initially with your own intent to heal and then with all of yourself. You have the power to limit my presence in your own life, but you do not have the power to limit me. Along with aligning your own spirit and will, you need to align with me. To do this, you need to release all of your judgments of what I am and what I am not. The influence away from free will. What feels the best all around is to do for others what you really want to do and nothing more. Denials shared by many. Returning to essence is not the goal of self-acceptance. Self-acceptance must include acceptance that individual consciousness has emerged to evolve essence. Denial of emergence is denial of the spirit's opportunity to increase its own light through evolvement. Death is unconditional denial of me. It belongs outside of me. This has a place in my creation that has to be understood as you are able to. An understanding of unconditional acceptance is needed here. The feminine principle. People must realize that feelings expressing as emotions open them to receive light. Holding emotions because they are judged unacceptable creates resistance to light. Sex and children. The way to find unconditional love is to accept and come to peace with everything in your own being. And then, even though it may now seem to be an impossible dream, you really will find that you can love and accept others unconditionally. If the ones involved claim they have only love and do not accept any of the dissatisfied undercurrents they are having sex in the presence of denial. Sexual energy is magnetic. Magnetic energy attracts what it is vibrating to. This is the magnetic force of desire. The presence of denial means you attract denial. The true understanding is that sex in the presence of denial has been bringing darkness to earth. The understanding of the sanctity of sex has been, for the most part, lost. When openness occurs in the presence of more darkness than light, the magnetic attraction is not for light, but for darkness. And this darkness is in a state of denial, and so is not open to receive light. Not only do people doing this increase their own state of denial and lessen their own light, but the children they attract to be born through these unions are spirits that carry the same kind of energy that was present between the parents at the time of that spirit's conception. Many parents have mixed feelings about their children, just the same as they do about their partners. This is no accident. There is a definite relationship. The more alignment you have, the more alignment you will attract in a partner and in your children. The more denial present, the more denial is attracted. The more non-acceptance in the parents, the more unaccepting the spirits will be that get born through them. If you are on your way toward balance and making this clear, then spirits will not seek to incarnate against your will because they will not know that you will. They know that you will not allow it. Pain in childbirth, for example, is just another expression of less than total attunement between the spirit and the will, and between the mother and the child. Total attunement never brings a painful or life-threatening situation to the birth experience. Free will between people. Many have thought that compromise was necessary, but compromise is a judgment, usually in advance of the experience, that the entirety of the proposal is not appropriate. This impedes the evolutionary process because no one compromising finds out if their own approach works or not. Compromise is really no more reasonable than denying parts of people in order to force them into the same destiny path. Polluting and poisoning are good examples of overriding the will of not only others but Earth itself. A planet has free will. Everything in creation has free will. You need to know that even your own body is only with you as long as it wants to be. In the near future, it is going to completely clear itself of all of the denial it has received, Earth that is. In this process, the West Coast, the East Coast, the Mississippi River Valley, and all the land directly south of the Great Lakes in the United States is going to experience landmass shifts. I suggest that you do not stay there. Your own recovery process needs to show you where to go and what to do when you get there. Form and graven images. Oh, there was nothing interesting here, it seems like. Form has been rather rigid on Earth for quite some time because the misunderstandings have been rigidly opposing the understandings. This rigidity has held back the intended evolution of form on Earth, and I am now going to straighten this out along with everything else. Acceptance. The real truth for you is going to come from true self-acceptance and no place else. Twists and turns on judgments. The way to understand the difference between a judgment and the truth is this. The will must feel the truth for you. Those that have not recognized something that others feel is a truth need to be free to seek the truth in their own way. The land of Pan. Now I want to tell some stories to help you understand more fully what I'm talking about. These can be very entertaining stories if you can release fear and doubt and realize that the popular opinion of the history of Earth is not entirely accurate. Man has, as I have said, tried to get out from under his responsibility on Earth in many ways. Pretending he cannot remember things that he does not want to remember is one of the main attempts at this. This has even gone to the extent of doctoring history so that it sounds better. The story's quite extensive. I didn't really highlight anything interesting. But there's a good wizard, there's a bad wizard. The bad wizard is the wizard of denial, and through the denial, he kind of overran the earth, and there were dragons that guarded the earth, and yeah, you'd think, even though the writer says it gets interesting, this is where I started tuning out personally. So I'm not really going to cover exactly what the plot is, but he covers Pan, which is like the origin of Earth, or humanity on Earth, Lumeria, and Atlantis. Okay. Denial spirits cannot do anything with you unless you have denial of your own. Every single kind of spirit has had to face denial spirits. Denial spirits have taken every form there is and reflected the denial of every kind of spirit. So here he gives an example of denial on the path, metaphorically, but get off the path as it's not a place to rest, and that's all there is to it. Another option would have been to embrace the denial spirit and take it along so that it could see for itself whether it belonged on Earth or not. This spirit continued denying Earth ways. It should then have been directed to leave and seek its own right place. So this is in response to saying, why are you enjoying yourself, skipping and running down the path in the woods? You see, you could have hurt me. I would like all of you to end your denial and let go of everything that does not feel like it belongs to you. Let me have the final word here by accepting my need to put everything in its right place. Sacrifice or denial of yourself in favor of others does not work. Lumeria. And once again here, there wasn't really much going on. And I felt like it was important to highlight the separation and disconnection that took place between the spirit and the will during the time of Pan led to the next two major experiences on Earth. Lumeria took the side of the will, and Atlantis took the side of the spirit. And both civilizations tried to prove that the polarity they believed in was superior. And that's pretty much it. So Lumeria, there was abundance of fruit, and I don't think they had spoken word. I think they could speak telepathically, if I remember correctly. And their denial apparently led to dinosaurs kind of overrunning everything. And the Atlanteans tried to save them, but they used methods that weren't great and denied will, apparently. And so that just exacerbated things. Interesting stuff. Atlantis. While communication in Lumeria was mainly body language and telepathic communication of feelings, communication in Atlantis was quickly developed into verbally articulate expressions of complex thought patterns and visions. Many in Atlantis developed the power of their mind to the point where they could focus thoughts and visions into crystals and store them later for presentation to groups of people. And so the Atlanteans were, according to this book, pretty much control freaks. I mean, it almost seems like some thought police stuff. They kept to really tight schedules, and it's almost like there was no individual thought. Like very hive-mindy, it seems like. They were very advanced. Interesting stuff. And again, from the reader here, this just seems to kind of reflect what's going on right now in our world, which is interesting. So the writer goes on. Neat schedules and orderly procedures began to break down as people began to do little more of what they felt like doing rather than just what they had been told they were supposed to do. Many in Atlantis who began to do what they wanted to do made up reasons why they were supposed to do it or why they had to do it. This was a cover for opening to acceptance of their will. The lack of alignment in Atlantis between the spirit and the will made them feel what they wanted to do was something other than what they were supposed to do. The conflict between duty and desire made room for an increase in guilt. Guilt is fear that the spirit is going to tell the will it should be feeling differently than it is. With guilt, societal dissension increased, and denial of the will in Atlantis reached a new peak. Atlanteans saw themselves as focusing only on the positive. They believed by focusing only on the light aspects of each and everything, darkness would be dispelled. They did not really look at the darkness as they were trying to dispel with the light. Everything has to be seen and accepted for what it really is, to be truly understood. Knowing what something is necessary in order to deal with it in the right way. Drugs. Drugs can help show the way, but they cannot take the way from you. Oh, for you. You need to know what you are doing and why you're doing it, and be willing to accept as soon as possible anything drugs are helping you to escape, such as intense grief or pain. The journey to your full consciousness and to your full awareness of me is full of adventure for you and is the most exciting journey you could take. Some spirits believe that they have solved the problem of the loss of this ability by saying that it's not appropriate for the physical body to turn to light because it's physical and meant to be dense. This is also judgment and not true understanding. All energy is meant to be free. Body is only meant to be physical if it wants to be. Many have made assumptions here that because body is physical, it wants to be. This, in fact, would be true if everything were aligned. Feelings are not something exterior like other experiences. Denial on Earth needs to be cleared. Reality on Earth is going to change soon in such a way as to make the retention of denial impossible if you're going to remain on Earth. If you are not wanting to release denial yet, you can continue it on another planet. A planet has the right to say who can live on it, and Earth has chosen to have denial cleared. You need to start with yourself and make an unconditional acceptance of how it really feels to be you. Having experiences you cannot fully accept along with the accompanying pain and denial is not leading you to me in the sense of increasing the light. It is possible to take yourself out of existence for all practical purposes this way. Denial is not necessary or even possible if you do not have experiences until you are ready for them. Studying the past for what can be gained actually allows the present to become more free and more creative, more abundant and more open to change. Looking at the past can really change the present, and since the present is creating the future, it affects the future too. Steps to healing and complete recovery. You need to accept everything that is there with you and give it release so that it can tell you what it needs and wants. You must accept everything that comes from a place in you and express it emotionally with yourself. When you have expressed everything you can in any one session, determine whether this feels like it is part of you or not. If there's no way you can come to peace with this expression as part of you, ask me to put it in its right place. You can only be overpowered by another if you give up some of your power so that they appear to have more. Personal power on Earth is seriously imbalanced. The imbalance of power took place step by step, and you need to restore the balance step by step. Even though certain religious teachings have said that I changed it so that man had to work for everything, I did not. Man himself changed it. I only informed him of what he had done through his own misunderstandings. Now, if you have had enough of the misunderstandings and the realities reflecting them, you can release all of it step by step and restore yourself to the original Garden of Eden, which was Pan. Right use of will is for all ages. If family is not allowing children to practice right use of will, the children need to realize that they chose this family. They will have to accept this to whatever degree they can make space for themselves until they are able to leave home. I hear the complaint on Earth. If I recover myself, I still have to cope with the rest of Earth. And the more sensitive I get, the harder it is to tolerate what is happening now. I want to reassure you. Open to me here. Everything that has been attempted so far on Earth has had denial present in it. In ending your own denial, you will automatically make the changes necessary in your own life. Even one person ending denial on Earth is going to have a tremendous effect on the reality there. Form intimidates only those over whom it has power. If you have no denial, it cannot deny you. In saying this, I do not mean that there is hope at the end of a long struggle. I mean that this can happen now. You do not have to heal everything in sight immediately. You only need to find your denials and accept them and have intent to heal them as fast as possible. Earth has my unlimited love, and the more you open to me, the more my light will increase on Earth. The more you open to yourself and the more of yourself you receive into your own love, the more you can open to me and increase your own light on Earth. So just some closing thoughts from the reader. Even though, I clearly understand the difference between will and spirit and the balance between these two, there, towards the end, there was a lot of talk between the imbalance between the two and the fight between the two that was kind of universal across all of mankind. And, well, it was a bit dense, honestly. Like, not as in it too dense to comprehend, but it was just repetitive and um, but the one thing I do like about this book, it's short. It's a short book, but the last 20 or 30 pages are just not pleasant. Not as in there's not as in it's triggering or it's dark. It's just the story is just weird. Um, it's not completely undeniable. Sorry, it's not completely um yeah, undeniable. It's just um maybe it's the way it's written that makes it hard to really appreciate. I'm not sure. But um, yeah, like the writing style changes, and then I think it makes it harder to really get through it. Um, so it's almost like it turns into a sci-fi novel. Um, so one thing I do find really beautiful about this is one core concept that I really appreciate that's outlined in here is that we have limited God's presence within ourselves and within our lives, and all we have to do is ask Him for help. One theme that kept on being repeated, I think, in the stories towards the end was that at every single point they could ask God for help, and they thought He either wasn't there, He wasn't willing to help, or that He couldn't in some way. So they limited God in their lives. And that's, I don't want to say how they ended up in trouble. Um, they ended up in trouble there kind of on their own, and they could have gotten out of trouble on their own, but there was always that lifeline. Um, Not even that ladder, just even better than that. There was always that divine lifeline right there that they were blind to or ignored or completely forgot about. And so that's something that I've taken away from this book personally. Um, that, anything you need help with, Anything you want, anything that's troubling you, you just ask God and He'll do it. Um, and along those lines, apparently at the beginning of time in Pan, I forgot to bring this up, we were able to manifest everything with ease and shapeshift. So really, so that means obviously not just manifest externally, but internally as well. Um, so, and you see parts of that now with people fixing their broken backs or their quadriplegics, or people changing their facial structure with exercise and manifestation techniques and things like that. Um, so it's still here, it's just slower. So just because things got denser with denial, things are slower. But those gifts are still innate and very much present within us. And even if we don't believe it fully, there's always that lifeline from God that is always there for everything that we need. Um, there isn't really another book like this that I've seen. So I'd say if you want to read it. But just so a fair warning, the last like 30 or so pages with the stories are, to me, weren't interesting. But yeah, a book written by God. Interesting, huh?